Okay, so I'm recording now also. Matthew. Yes, so number one, all living things are made of one or more cells. Sheila, what's number two? Okay, and now that one, we could write that two ways. So smallest unit of life, we can also write that as the basic unit of structure and function. Okay, so when you say smallest unit of life, what that means is that cell is alive and it is doing all of the things that living things do. So it's breaking down energy, it's making protein. Does that make sense? So two, cells are the basic unit of structure and function in living things. Now, the last one I find is the easiest to remember. What's the last one? Yes. There we go. All cells come from pre-existing cells. Now, uh, so the basics of that, if you fall down and cut your leg, you scrape your leg, the cells that replace the cells that you scraped off come from the living cells around the cut, not from the air or from, they don't just spontaneously generate or appear. And that's one of the things that we talked about during one of those first days of class on cells. Okay. Now, I am not going to be asking you to write these out on the quiz tomorrow. We don't have time for that. Remember, this is a shorter quiz, so not a full test. The question that you will see on cell theory will be more like the ones that we saw in the review activity yesterday. So I will give you four statements, and I'll say which one of these is not part of the cell theory. And literally, if it's different than one of these three things, it's not part of the cell theory. Statements about cells can be true and not part of the cell theory. So, for example, I can say all cells have cell membranes. Well, that's true, but it's not part of the cell theory. Okay. Cells are really small. Well, sure they are, but that's not part of the cell theory. Okay. The cell theory applies to our foundational knowledge about cells. Okay. Not to necessarily specific characteristics of specific cells. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay. So, are people on Zoom? Are you able to see this cell theory?
No.
Are you able to,
Yes.
not really?
No.
Okay.
I can.
Is that
I
better?
can.
Well, that's not going to be a solution, me holding it up like that. So I will take a picture and send that to you. Okay. Um, and I will also type the three parts in the chat right now. Okay. So that you have it. Okay. Any questions on cell theory? No? Okay. So I'm going to erase this now. I just sent you in chat the the 3 parts of the cell theory, so you should see those. Okay. Next, we're going to skip to the end. Remember, we're going in order of how we learn things, not in order of the study guide. So the next thing we're going to take a look at is the Venn diagram on the last page. I apologize in advance. My circles are not going to be very circular. Okay. Do my best, but I'm not a very good artist. Okay. Not that you need to be an artist to draw a circle. I just can't do it. Okay. So on the left side, so remember the left side, these things that we write here are only going to be true of the cells that we put up here, which will be prokaryotic. So prokaryotes. Okay. The right side, this will be true. Anything in this space will only be true of eukaryotes. And then where these two circles overlap, okay, in the middle here, those will be true of both. Okay? So, to begin, we only talked about 2 major groups of prokaryotes. They were bacteria and archaea. Okay? When we drew a prokaryote, we drew something like this, a rod-shaped bacterium that had a flagellum on the end. Okay? Now, what were the characteristics we talked about that make something prokaryotic? What traits does a prokaryote have? Okay, so they don't have membrane bound what? Not cells. Organelles. There we go. So good combination there. Good teamwork. So to start with, let's back up a second and say prokaryotic cells tend to be smaller. So they're smaller, and they're about 1 to 10 nanometers or micrometers. Okay. Now, and then they do not have membrane-bound organelles. So you should be filling out your chart now if you haven't done it already. If you have filled out your chart, then you should be double checking that you've got all of these traits. So remember, pro means no. So no membrane-bound organelles, and then there's another thing that they don't have. What's another thing they don't have? Excellent. And they also do not have a nucleus. So if they don't have a nucleus, which is the organelle that holds DNA or genetic material, where is the genetic material in a prokaryotic cell? Where would you find the genetic material? Emma, do you remember? Where would you find the genetic material in a prokaryotic cell?
In the chloroplast or
Close.
the cytoplasm?
Cytoplasm, there you go. So you got to be careful because those 2 words look very similar, but it is in the cytoplasm. So in prokaryotic cells, DNA is free floating in the cytoplasm. Okay? Now, for both, there are four parts that all cells have, no matter if you're prokaryotic or eukaryotic. Now, a couple of them are on the board already. So, what parts do all cells have, no matter what? Vanessa, can you give me one? What's one thing all cells have? Close. What's in, not that, but something else on the outside? So, what is the outside of an animal cell called? So, your cells don't have a cell wall, they have a what? Anybody know?
A cell membrane?
Good. Cell membrane. So, all cells have a cell membrane. Okay? So, just remember, like if you're looking at a cell like this, okay, this line is the cell membrane. It surrounds the cell from its environment. Then some cells, not all cells, but some cells have another layer around this called the cell wall. Okay? And in particular, plants have that cell wall. Now, not all cells have a cell wall, but all cells have at least a cell membrane. Okay? Now, what other parts do all cells have? Two of them are on this side. Yes. Good. Cytoplasm. So all cells have to be filled with a fluid material. We call that material cytoplasm. Okay, so all cells have cytoplasm. What else do all cells have? One more thing that's on this side. Matthew? Nope, because remember, these do not have membrane bound organelles. So it's got to be
Is
all
it
cells.
is it DNA?
Correct. Who was that?
Zinnia.
Zinnia, nice job. So they all have DNA somewhere. Okay? Prokaryotes have DNA, it's just in a different place than in eukaryotes. Okay? So they have DNA, and then the last thing they have is ribosomes. All four of these things are found in all cells. Okay? Um, Now, we get to eukaryotes, and we'll just go in order here. So eukaryotes are larger, and that they could be about 10 to 100 micrometers. They do have a nucleus. They do have membrane bound organelles. And so, because of that, because they have those things, I always remember that U means do. They do have those parts. Okay? And then the DNA inside these, DNA in eukaryotic cells, is inside the nucleus. Now, generally speaking, eukaryotic cells have more specialized parts, so we say that they are more complex, at least in comparison to prokaryotes. Not to say that prokaryotes aren't necessarily complex, but they don't have as many specialized parts. So that is definitely a difference. Okay. Any questions on that difference, Matthew? Yeah, I'm not going to be testing you on that. That's just an abbreviation. It's just a very small unit of measurement. Okay, any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask. But now this portion of the study guide should be done now for you. If you need to take a picture of that, you can. Okay. Oop, I'll get a way to model it. Okay. Now, does everyone have a picture of this that wanted a picture? Okay. Okay. I'm going to erase this now. Okay. How are we doing on time? What time is it? What? Yikes. Okay. So the last thing I want to talk to you about today are the 13 organelles that you should be able to tell me about for the quiz tomorrow. Any of these 13 organelles are fair game for a multiple choice question about their function, what they do. Okay? Now I will type these in to on both the board and in chat, and then you can ask questions about them. So I'm going to start from the outside and work my way in. Okay? So you've got cell wall, cell membrane, okay? Cytoplasm, Golgi complex, lysosome, vacuole, rough, endoplasmic reticulum, or ER, smooth ER, ribosomes, mitochondria, chloroplast, nucleus, nucleolus. Okay, so let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. There we go. So let me type this into chat so you have them all. While I'm typing them, scan through, ask yourself, can I tell you what that does? So here we go. Hang on 1 second. Okay, questions? Yes. Okay, any questions on the functions of these? Yes. The two different types of reticulum? Okay, great. So the question was, what's the difference between rough and smooth ER? Smooth ER is super easy. It makes lipids. Remember, lipids are fats, and those are the molecules that we use to make cell membranes. Okay? So anything that needs to be wrapped in a membrane, okay, those membrane molecules are made into smooth ER. Now, rough ER has ribosomes. So it is the site, so it's where chemical reactions take place. Okay? Any other questions or any others that you're not quite sure of? Yes. Gold, oh, good, Golgi complex. So now all of the stuff that's made in the endoplasmic reticulum, like let's say the endoplasmic reticulum, ribosomes on the endoplasmic reticulum are making proteins, right? Well, when that protein is done, it's got to be shipped to different places. Maybe it's got to go into your saliva, or it's got to go to another place in the cell. So the Golgi complex is like the post office. So the Golgi complex packages and ships proteins. So like think about it. When you go to the post office, um, they don't make the stuff for you, right? Like you don't go there and say like, "Hey, I'd like to send a book to my cousin." You have to bring the book to them, right? And then they package it and ship it, right? So just like that, the proteins are made somewhere else, but then the Golgi complex packages them up in a vesicle and ships them to other places. Does that make sense? Okay, Matthew. Yes, Golgi complex, Golgi body, and Golgi apparatus are all the same thing. Uh, yeah, as long as it says Golgi, you know that's what I'm talking about. Okay. On the test, I'm telling you right now, I think I refer to it as Golgi complex. Okay. So Golgi complex is what you would expect. Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Chris. What? Tomorrow. It was supposed to be today, and then we moved it back to tomorrow. Yes. Oh, good. So the rough endoplasmic reticulum is covered in ribosomes. So that's what gives it its rough appearance. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, this is from the study guide, is covered in ribosomes. Yes. Yes. Ribosomes. So ribosomes make proteins. Now, those ribosomes can either be on the rough endoplasmic reticulum or floating in the cytoplasm. Okay? But that is where the actual proteins are made. Any other questions on Zoom? Yes. What was that first part? cytoplasm. So everything inside the cell is floating in the cytoplasm, okay? Which is just the fluid that fills all cells. So no matter what type of cell you are, okay, if you are filled with cytoplasm, right? Yes. Was that number 8? Sorry, I don't. No, I think number 8 is ribosomes, isn't it? I think number 8 is ribosomes. Which one are you on? Hang on, go up. Yeah. Yeah, that's ribosomes. 8 is ribosomes. Correct. The one we were just talking about, this one. Cell organelles are located within the cytoplasm of the cell. Correct. And we call that cytoplasm. Yes. Okay. So you've got 10 minutes left. If there was a question you didn't want to ask whole group and you'd like to type that in chat now, you can. Okay. I did record this, so I'll post this after class. I do have a few questions that are in private chat right now. So I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to answer those now.